The government wants a monopoly on the food supply. They want to use Amos Miller's case to set the legal precedent for a monopoly on food supply. Here they went into a farmer's freezer and took his own food from his own family that he himself had made.
People think of doomsday as this massive nuclear explosion, zombie apocalypse, alien invasion, or a perfect giant wasp getting on national television challenging the world to have smoke with him. But no, doomsday is happening right before our very eyes. A very slow, subtle, and stressful life in the form of economic collapse, environmental collapse, resource hoarding, social isolation, and everything else in between. But what's so frustrating to people like myself is that the majority of people don't see it because they've been conditioned to the modern world to the point of domestication and normalization, and what we think is normal isn't a problem, right? But for the people who get it and want to break the chains of dependency, our way of life is being attacked and thrown into a category of non-essentials. People who have edible gardens, who are fishermen, hunters, homesteaders, even farmers are roaring for people to understand this, because when it comes time that you want to be self-sufficient, you won't be able to, simply because it threatens the bottom line of corporations and an extent of government authority over the people. That's why in this video, I'm going to attack the possibilities of what corporations, even the government themselves, will do to stop you from being self-sufficient. I'm Alexandria Denise, your self-sufficiency coach in the area of hunting, fishing, and gardening. Attack that like button and whatever feature is going to get this video discovered. Subscribe to the tribe. It's free, cost you nothing, mean everything to me. And let's attack this. Let's start with the most common, gardening. As more people start to learn the truth about their food, they are becoming self-sufficient. And if it's profitable, companies that have nothing to do with the self-sufficiency lifestyle will start selling products to cater to those consumers. Now, cross-selling is not a new thing. It's already been done before. If you don't know who Monsanto is, now they're called Bayer because they're owned by a German company now. They were bought out. But beforehand, Monsanto was a chemical company turned agriculture company, but they played a part in developing Agent Orange for the Vietnam War, as well as the atomic bomb for World War II. But after war times and their usefulness has ran out, their chemicals acted as nitrogen in the soil, and now we have a boom of a lot of products on the shelves that caters to our food system, which is why we also had a boom in junk food and some more things. So they were a chemical company turned agriculture company, and now they pretty much dominate that industry. Even now we see Google, who is a tech company, kind of entering the space of bioengineering with the whole mosquito project that they're doing. So yeah, it's not that far-fetched that different companies, after they've ran their usefulness in that industry, will cross over to another industry. Even if they're in the same industry, you see how brands are crossing over in the grocery stores. You see candy brands mixing with ice cream and cereal and the whole 9 yards. So anything to stay relevant and to sell you junk. This is just what I kind of foresee happening as the lifestyle of self-sufficiency picks up. But that brings me to my next point of them engineering specialty varieties or seedless varieties. This will also launch a race for a lot of companies to patent their own plants so that people can grow what's used in their best product. I mean, it already has worked out for many other companies in between. And this is because of the Plant Variety Protection Act. And basically what it is that if you can create an entirely new specimen that is able to reproduce on its own and show different characteristics of something that's not in existence, you can apply for a plant patent. So you're already eating a lot of patented foods. And if you think this is a far-fetched concept, it's already been implemented with farmers. Farmers are locked into contracts with, technically it's called Bayer now, but I'm going to continue to say Monsanto because it just sounds like the typical villain name. But this is how the business model went. They would be locked in contracts with farmers to grow only their specialty variety of corn that they engineered, hence your acronym GMO. So this kept them into debt and companies like Bayer, Monsanto profiting. So it's not a far-fetched concept too much. that they could even push this upon regular consumers. A lot of people will say, well, how are they going to regulate that? But they will find their ways, hiring their own type of agency or through code enforcement or anything to go and test the air or soil or anything around to see who is growing their product. Speaking of Monsanto, though, this is the reason why in recent studies, Roundup Ready is showing up in a lot of people's systems and making them sick. It's contributing to all types of health problems. So you may not think you're eating these type of foods, but we already have it with wheat, corn, and soy, which is produced by Monsanto and contracted by farmers to grow, and these other food companies are buying from this one supplier. But other than Monsanto, Lay's potato chips also have their own patent. It's called Potato 5, and while it's a regular potato, the moisture content in that potato is a lot less than what you find in other varieties to give that texture or crispiness that is consistent with their product. For that reason, I see more seedless varieties or specialty varieties emerging for comfort or convenience. What this ultimately means for you is that you would have to go back to the nursery to purchase those seeds or plants in order to increase your quantity, or if something happens to that parent plant. Now, that seems all well and fine until you see the cost of seeds and plants these days. I mean, I remember when the Bonnies used to be $3 and some change, and now they're like $6 and what in the world? You know, and I paid, $60 for my pomegranate tree. By the time that some people are catching on, who knows how much that is. But for this reason, I also foresee them engineering plants to have shorter lifespans. Now look, a typical tree can last you for generations, but that doesn't keep CEOs' pockets fat. So what I would say, I mean, they could switch up genetics and cap either how much or how long the tree can produce before it, before you have to get a new one. If not, then they will create or enhance diseases, just to kind of speed up that process. But while it's okay to create varieties that are disease resistant, you might want to be aware of those that are that have to be grown with certain products, such as the Roundup Ready. But with that being said, these products will have dire consequences on the environment as well. Deforestation, we're already doing monocropping, soil contamination, even water waste, which is probably why the government will also restrict your rainwater collection. And collecting rainwater as of right now, 2026, is legal in all 50 states on a federal level. But that may be challenged in the future, especially after the video where I talked about the AI data centers that takes millions of gallons of water a day just to keep cool. The government may deem it necessary to restrict your water consumption and prevent the collection of rainwater for your safety or the progression of the nation. But the same logic that they used for World War II when they had to supply our troops with a lot of meats and whatever, so they had to make it reasonable for you to accept other products that were entering the market at the time. But I can only still see them wanting to restrict from using water in any capacity, be it rainwater or treated water, for technological progression against other nations, using our resource for some stupid political race that nobody asked to enter, but hey, whatever. But rainwater is essential for the self-sufficiency lifestyle, especially for like gardening and livestock. And if they can control our usage of it, it actually makes the lifestyle harder. And if that happens, you may think that you can just hide your rain collection system in your backyard or underground somewhere in a tank. But as of in recent years, they have developed technology that can survey what's on and underground on your land without stepping a foot on it. So other than standard satellite, AI has used other technologies to enhance what's already out there. And one of it is GPR, or a ground penetrating radar. And they've combined this with other technologies to create 3D images of things that are underground. And this is usually done before they start any digging projects or something, so they're not hitting a pipeline or whatnot. But at first I thought it was called SAR, which is synthetic aperture radar, but that only works best in like dry soils and sand, so like desert areas. But as of recent years, they've developed other things that can see what's underground in your land. I wouldn't even be surprised if they use this new technology to evaluate the value of your property and reassess your taxes every year. I mean, so if you have a large garden in the back, like thinking you don't have to pay taxes on the food that you grow, then that might get slapped onto your tax bill next year. So, I mean, it could decrease or something, or maybe that offers them some type of incentive to give you a tax write-off, but with all types of strings attached. The government doesn't even have to use force anymore. The art of subtlety has become the new strategy for overreach. Less conflict, more power and control. And if you ask me, I would think that this is also a way to track who's actually gardening and homesteading so that they can enforce either enforce more laws or, if some other type of agenda arises. So HOAs are already a pain for homeowners, but even renters are going to face their challenges as well. And I would not be surprised if a lot of renting companies would enforce having a garden or a small garden, be it on your patio or your, balcony or whatever, the same way they do with pets. Basically charging you just to have a garden, simply because it's not aesthetically pleasing. Okay, and I've even had my run-ins with the leasing office here with she who shall not be named. But basically, long story short, if you haven't seen that video, it's basically where the leasing manager had a problem with my garden. The owners, Barrington Group, haven't even seen my garden, didn't know what I was talking about, but she just found it not aesthetically pleasing. And so I had to downsize. And even if they offer you like a garden plot, don't be surprised when you have to pay extra on that a month. So when you're a homeowner, it's the government, and when you're a renter, it's other spiteful people, Now, a lot of people are renting due to the cost of housing and job stability, which leaves no stability for people to just be self-reliant. So people are embracing the nomadic lifestyle, and that combination of renting and nomadic life actually leaves the market open for homes. Now, because of this, it is getting harder for a lot of people to buy. So I would not be surprised if somewhere down the line they would get rid of the USDA housing loan. And basically what that is that the USDA offers a home loan to populate rural areas. And because some people want to live closer to the cities, be it for jobs or something other like that, it leaves a lot of these other places unpopulated. So other investors in the market, that actually leaves them room to snatch up such places. It's like just 100 years ago, people were out there in those rural areas. They owned farms, they were self-sufficient and so on. And only the folks that wanted to be a part of the upper echelons of society were in cities, but they moved to cities for better job opportunities. And now a lot of folks are packed into cities, and only certain people are living out in the rural areas, people who can afford it to upkeep such land and some more stuff like that. I just think it's interesting how they played a Uno reverse card on us. I mean, there are still private landlords you can find that agree with your lifestyle, but there are also state, city, and county ordinances to be aware of, and officials who may not be in favor of the self-sufficiency lifestyle and implement certain restrictions against gardening, homesteading, and raising chickens. Here in Georgia, it's a pretty homestead-friendly state. But in certain areas, you may have restrictions based on what how much you can have and what you can have. So I know that in College Park, you can have chickens, but it has to be only hens, no roosters, and no more than 3. Versus where I am, you can have whatever you want. I mean, even in Decatur, they have alpacas. I'm like, oh my God. I ride past them every now and then. I'm like, we can have that. I wouldn't even know what I want an alpaca for, but now I want an alpaca simply because they had it. But I get it. The certain restrictions are necessary though for you to have in place. You don't want to be introducing an invasive species into a native environment. So some restrictions are good, but then others, it does have to be challenged and questioned as to why you can't have it. But honestly, this is the type of overreach that got the Amish The Amish, yes, out to vote the past election season because they were telling them how they can do their farming practices, forcing them to throw out their raw cow milk, saying it's not sanitary, this, that, and the third, and whatever else. And these people have their own way of life. They didn't want that type of government overreach coming into them and saying what they can and cannot do.
The government wants a monopoly on the food supply. They want to use Amos Miller's case to set the legal precedent for a monopoly on food supply. Here they went into a farmer's freezer and took his own food from his own family that he himself had made.
People just want the freedom to choose and provide for themselves without government intervention. So no matter how if you float on the political spectrum, I mean, over here, red or blue, they're not for you. And it's like anything that they say, both parties need to be challenged for the sake of the people. And for the sake of this channel, leave it a green thumbs up so it can branch out and reach more people. Back to the programming. Hunting and fishing. They're already challenging and regulated enough, but if more people engage in this course of self-sufficiency, then the cash out opportunities is endless. I'm talking from gear to land. More companies catering to the outdoorsmen will definitely look for their reasons to increase their profits. And it's going to become a lot more chaotic, but if they can't benefit from it, then they're going to try to deter people from doing it. And it's definitely going to start with making hunting and fishing licenses more expensive. If there's one way you want to deter people from doing something is to outprice them. Hunting and fishing is a way of life. It's a life fundamental for a lot of species, but most humans have made it a luxury sport to be able to engage in the outdoors. Now, licenses are needed following an education course, and depending on your state, your license acts as a lands pass to be able to be out there. Like here in Georgia, $65 secures me an annual sportsman's license with a migratory bird slapped on. But that's actually not expensive for what I can do and for a harvest record, but that might go up depending on the powers to be. That's usually due to the price of land going up in value or the value of the dollar going down, whichever happens first. Okay, so if you're new to this, how it works is that little to no tax dollars are given to conservation. And if so, it's usually for your city and state parks, not usually your WMAs for hunting or recreational purposes. Along with merchandise that is purchased for outdoor uses, licenses purchased are used by departmental agencies such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife or the DNR of that state to buy new land for hunting or to clean up waterways for fishing. And licenses have a few other benefits, but if land continues to increase, then so will our licenses. And it becomes harder for these agencies to purchase new land to enjoy these activities. So what happens? Well, they lose it to whoever can afford it. Companies, investors, rich billionaires, etc. Here in Georgia, we lost pine log. Nearly 15,000 acres of hunting land for over 40 years lost to housing developers. It was one of the prime spots for turkey hunting, and now it's all been leveled for residential, industrial, or mining uses. So hunters lose hunting land, animals lose homes. And this tactic is no secret. I mean, you increase land, undercut government funding to these agencies, make it expensive for people to engage, cut the head off the snake. No one can hunt to feed themselves, and wildlife is actually forced into tighter areas. Yes, more people engaging means more funding, but that's shaky speculations for many reasons. And yes, the U.S. government owns a lot of land, but all of that land is not for recreational uses via your zoning law or other boundaries. Plus, the state government has to either buy or lease land from the federal government and or other groups or agencies. So that's where your BPAs or HIP land comes in. So like here in Georgia, we have Camp Thunder, and it's owned by the Boy Scouts of America. So basically, it's private land that becomes public land through leasing agreement of the state and the landowner. So it's kind of like the Section 8 of hunting. I explained all of this because as more people engage in this lifestyle, they're going to need a place to hunt. But this also offers opportunity for private investors to make their own killing by buying up land and charging people to hunt. Now, private landowners already lease their land as a pay to play, but this is a possibility that can happen on a corporate scale. Just as a side note, though, this is one of the reasons why BLM was challenged in the Big Beautiful Bill, where Congress wanted to sell off a bunch of public land just to compensate for their bad spending habits. But hunters were like, no, no, no. And that's because anybody with the capital can buy that land and do anything with it. And those are natural resources that we will never get back. I can't help but to throw this in as a possibility as well. But if corporations get their hand on land to lease to the public to hunt, then we may see a rise in genetic breeding programs to artificially increase the animal in question to improve their quality. And this is because the wildlife becomes the product. And to attract more people to that hunting location, I mean, these programs increase desirable traits of the animal. That sounds great, but then the question will be, will there be any true, natural, and wild species the way God and nature designed them to be? And for those who think this is a far-fetched concept, it's already been done. Now, we do have genetic breeding programs that studies chronic wasting disease in deer species, but we've also seen the many footages of the wild, crazy antlers and everything like that. So in hunting, there's a thing called high fence hunting, and it's actually shamed in the hunting community because it's dishonorable to the lifestyle, unethical and exploitative to the animal, and degrades the integrity of God's design of nature. And if this happens, there's no difference in domesticated animals and the wild ones. Nothing but the price tag. Now, there is an alternative that's a bit more conservative, and even if it's still pay to play, this is where independent landowners basically just manage their land and make it appealing for wildlife to live there and charge a premium to hunt the animal or the species in question. So other than feeders, there are no fences. They don't force medication on them. They don't tag them or any of that kind of stuff. They're free to go on and off the land as far and wide as they please. But they just basically manage the land and nature takes care of the rest. But because of this is actually the business model that I see a bunch of corporations taking advantage of most. Other than land maintenance, the inventory stocks itself and it takes care of itself. And they can charge people whatever just to hunt and take a gamble on an animal they may or may not get a shot at. And the same with fishing waters. The whole thing with Wall Street buying up single family homes actually opened my mind to this possibility if this lifestyle picks up. I mean, this is why we need protection from corporations who are looking to take advantage of our resources, including the animals. So it's just something that should be for the public to enjoy for future generations. And they'll say that funds will go towards conservation, but I mean, that's not good enough for me because we all know about those type of little inside industries. I'm talking about charities. They'll say that they donated to charity, but they own the charity. And then it's like the money just basically circulate back to them because you're like, how do we have all these charities and nobody's being helped? Oh, it's a tax write-off thing. Got it. Okay. But anyway, lastly, they may require you to take your game to the processor for safe inspection. Look, anytime they want to push a narrative, health and safety is always at the forefront. Not to say that those things don't matter, but I mean, people who are easily persuaded will just blindly go along with it without even challenging or questioning why. It helps to understand like what those risks are and who those risks affect most. Because it's like, have you ever thought about how something wasn't a problem before and now all of a sudden it's popular, it's a problem? So, I mean, you've seen like where they'll have a study about something that's a superfood and then months later they say that, oh, this superfood is actually causing blah, blah, blah. You know, the narrative follows the numbers. So if too many people are benefiting on something that costs the government or companies their profits, scare tactics are often deployed to steer people where they want their money to go. So you'll start seeing headlines like, studies show that growing your own food is not as eco-friendly as buying from the grocery store, or deer meat is not as healthy as a lot of people say it is. I don't know, something crazy along those lines. So yeah, the smear campaigns will start. So if they don't outright ban hunting or fishing, they're going to try to benefit from it in other ways, such as taking your game to the processor for safe inspection. And maybe this will have a benefit, but don't be surprised if they work in some, try not to say the quiet part out loud, because currently the game that you hunt yourselves, Uncle Sam don't have access to it. That's because there's no way to keep track of it. So don't be surprised if they try to work in that based off the weight of the animal. And like I said, they will try to guilt trip you and say it will go towards conservation or something. But remember, conservation was never at the forefront of any of these conversations to begin with. So why start now? Editing Alex here. There's also debate in the hunting community if meat that we hunt is actually free or pre-paid for because of the amount of gear and everything else that goes into hunting. I personally think that it might be expensive up front, but over time the meat start paying for itself once you gain skills and know what you're doing and this, that, and the third. But let me know what you think. I know that was my last point, but I do have an honorable mention. Just like there's a saying that says, eat the rich, companies have their own saying of eats the competition. And basically, everyone is not built for the hunting, fishing, and gardening lifestyle. I get it. But as more people discover the truth about their foods, they will seek out more quality brands, such as for like family farms or small trusted brands that focuses on the quality of their product and not just mass quantity. So in order to push them out of the market, I can only foresee corporations lobbying to the government to make more restrictions or laws or permits to make it harder for these companies to keep up. And then when that happens, it opens the market to them. So they become our main line of nutrition and some more things, if they haven't already done it. I'm pretty sure, but just throwing it out there. Because even the smallest violation can bankrupt a small family business, and they don't have the capital to go against corporate conglomerates in court. But if that happens, the question then becomes, will us as the consumer become the competition, or are we just still going to be consumers? I don't know. But see, this is why I started this video, and the possibilities are endless. But I know it was quite a list. But did I miss anything? Like, how do you feel about anything that I have said? Everything that I presented here is something that they either try to do, have done, or in the process of. But we have to remember that these are people just like us, and they only have as much power as we allow them to have. I know, I can be a rebel. If you have harvested value from this video, then push it further by whatever feature will help you do that. I know that some information that I have presented here probably upset the YouTube gods, who will strike it down in the algorithm. But if not, then they may think you'd like this video, and if not this one, maybe that one. But until then, remember that skills bring wealth. Seek God and nature for good health. Stay wild, live free.
Bare feet in the dust, heartbeat